Caleb with Brownhouse here, and in today's quick tip, we're going to be dropping a Howa chassis into the MDT field stock. So before we get started, let me just bend your ear a little bit about the MDT field stock. So this one obviously is in flat dark earth. It also comes in black, so you got those two color options there. It has an adjustable cheek piece. I see that's probably one of the first things you'll notice about it because of the knob on the side. But you just loosen that knob a little bit, slide it up, slide it down, slide wherever, and then tighten it on down. And your length of pull for this rubberized butt pad here is adjustable with inserts, like a lot of other MDT stuff, and a lot of other companies do that as well. So you just unscrew the butt pad, throw the inserts in, and you are good to go there. Sling studs, you got a sling stud on the front, standard eyelet, one on the back as well. And then you have a nice vertical grip on here. And so the first thing I did when I picked this up, I picked it up right-handed, but everyone out there who knows me at all, you know I'm left eye dominant. So I also went to left-handed. And even though there's a bit of a palm swell on both sides of this, it's good for ambidextrous. So you can use it left or right-handed, and the knob does not get in the way of your cheek. So that's nice there. So if you're a left-handed shooter, no big deal. Obviously this is only cut for right-handed actions, but as a left-handed shooter, all my actions are right-handed anyway. Alright, so let's get on to other parts of this here. The inside of it, all the way up to this area right around the front of the chamber, that is all aluminum. So this is full aluminum bed block here. And then it goes all the way through the bottom. This is aluminum with a polymer trigger guard attached to that aluminum. And it does take AICS magazines. So we're going to be using this MDT metal one here, but you can use whatever you want. The Magpul polymer, it's all good, all works. All right, as you can see, you got some M-LOK on the bottom, left, and right. And the front here, this is polymer in the front. It's not a full-length aluminum, but honestly, there's like pillars that go through from top to bottom, and it's pretty thick. So this, you don't have to worry about this flexing at all. Like this is the polymer portion of this stock is extremely solid. It's not going to bend. If you can put a bipod on here, you can mount all kind of junk on your gun to make it as heavy as possible, and it's not going to flex at all. So that is a non-issue. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump into the actual gunsmithy part. So if you hadn't checked out our other video on the Howa actions, we sell these Howa barreled actions. You can install them, you can put them in on your kitchen table. You don't need any kind of head spacing tools, barrel vices, anything like that. Alright, so the first thing we're going to need to do, let's pretend like we just unboxed this Howa action here. So we're going to need to remove this bottom metal because we're not going to be using it. Alright, so let me bust open my tools here. This is the Fix-It Sticks Field Armor Kits. And yeah, T27's probably the right size. Psych, gotta go up one. Alright, T30. And we'll just loosen that front one there, pull it all the way out. If you can see what I'm doing, let me get some stuff out the way here. I'm just removing that front action screw. Alright. Then we're going to do the same thing to the rear right here. Alright, pull that all the way out. And our bottom metal, set that aside. Alright. And, the magazine, internal magazine body, we can take that out as well. Alright, so we can actually take these two action screws, set those aside because the stock came with its own screws. And we'll need to change bits for that. And you gotta unscrew it. I'll show you why in just a moment here. Alright. So these screws are just put into the action there. And there's these little plastic nuts that keep them in. You don't need those. You can get rid of those. Do the same thing on the rear. And I'll just come in from the opposite side with my index finger and push against that plastic nut to keep it in place as I unscrew everything. There we go. And your rear screw probably isn't going to come all the way out. That's fine. You can leave it just like that. So now we are going to take our action and we are just going to drop it in there. I'm going to get my fingers out the way here because I can't put it in with my fingers in the way. There we go. Alright, so what I like to do at this point is just flip it upside down so the action is laying on the table. And if you have an optic mounted already, don't do that. Just use a vise or something. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that front action screw, drop it back in, and I'm going to tighten it, but I'm not going to go all the way with it just yet. Alright, I'm going to leave that kind of loose. Do the same thing with the rear. Just get it started. Make sure it's actually going into the action here. Alright, and leave it kind of loose. So our action is loosen our chassis. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get the torque wrench set up here. Alright. So you notice you can move your stock back and forth just a hair in here. This one's actually really tight. I can barely feel it moving. But what you want to do is grab the stock and you're going to want to slide it forward so that the back of the lug is against the aluminum on the back of the chassis, so that there's no way for it to move when it recoils, which it shouldn't, so it's not going to be an issue, but this is more of a redundancy than anything else. And then we're just going to torque down this front action screw, and I'm going to go say 45 inch-pounds should be plenty. Then on the rear, you don't have to go quite as far on the rear. I'm just going to go, say 40 inch-pounds feels about okay. And different bolt action rifles are different as far as their torque values. It also depends on if you're going into aluminum or you're going into synthetic. But that's a good safe range. We just torqued it to right there. We could go a little bit more if we wanted to. No big deal. Alright, so that is it. That's how you install the chassis. It's that simple. Alright, so now at this point, all we need to do is install a rifle base. And for this, we're going to go with the EGW one-piece 1913 base. And for this, I'm just going to... Actually, so you can see here, I'm going to do all the work right here. And I'm just going to drop this in the vise. And rest my muzzle on the workbench. And we'll work just like this. Alright, so you have 4 holes in the receiver. Your base will come with base screws. If it doesn't, if it needs to, you should reach out to whoever manufactured that base and get those screws. And let me grab my screws here. Here we go. Now, this is important to notice. If you stand your base screws up on the head of the screw, alright, so these right here, if you're doing the EGW base screws, they're all the same. If you're doing like a Remington 100 2-piece base or anything like that, it's important to note that your base screws may not all be the same length. If they're not all the same length, the short ones always go in the front of the receiver, okay? And then your long ones will go in the rear of the receiver. Alright, so let's go ahead and keep moving here. Alright, so next thing you need to do is just make sure your surfaces are clean. If you got like a lot of oil and stuff like that on your receiver or down in those holes, just use a Q-tip with some acetone or gun scrubber, any kind of degreaser, and just get the grease out, and that'll be just fine. So we want to degrease before we go into Loctite, because we are going to be using Loctite. The Loctite I like to use for this is the red, which is the 271. You can use blue, but typically for base work, I always just go for red. Alright, and we are going to be... yeah, we can use this torque attachment, that'll be fun. Alright, so at this point, I'll just set my base on there, just like so. We'll get the appropriate bits. And let's see here. That'll do it. So T10. Most of them, when they're Torx, they're T15, but EGW, they all use T10. So they're not like the other ones, or the rest of them, I should say. Like if you're going with like a Badger Ordnance or a Night Force or something like that, chances are those will be a T15 bit. Alright, so I just put a little bit of Loctite on my workbench, and then I just dip my screw in that, just get a little bit on there. Because you don't want to take a tube like this and just glob it into that hole, because then your hole is going to be full of Loctite, it's going to drip down where it shouldn't be, and it's just going to make a mess. Don't do it. Alright. And I'm just going to work with this rear one first here. And you don't have to start here. You can start at any point. And I'm just going to screw that down, but I'm not going to torque it yet. And I'm going to do the same thing for every one of these. A little bit of Loctite. And we just keep the party going. Get the next one. And the next one. Same thing with all four. Alright, now we can start torquing them down. So, your torque range for a 648 screw, typically somewhere between 15 to 18 inch-pounds. You can even go 20 if you want to. However, it's important to remember that this is a liquid Loctite. So, a wet torque value and a dry torque value are two different things, which means whenever we torque this to 15 inch-pounds, it's probably going to actually be somewhere between 18 to 20 inch-pounds because it's wet, it's lubricated. Alright, so we're going to go to 15 inch-pounds. We'll do the front one first. Alright, then we'll jump all the way to the opposite here. Then we'll come back to the other one in the front. And then the last one here. Alright, that's all there is to it. Now our base is mounted. We can go through the whole scope and ring mounting process. We're not going to do that. We have a video dedicated to it. We took this one off of another 1913 rail. The great thing about 1913 rails, this will mount right back on another 1913 rail. Because there's a standardized actual like tolerance for the slots, spacing, all that stuff. That's why it's a versatile system. So if you haven't seen it, or if you need help with it, I'll link that video down below if you're watching this on YouTube. That way you can find it really easy. If not, it's just called I think it's just How to Mount a Scope is the name of the video. Part of our bolt action build series. Alright, so we'll just tighten these nuts down here on the optic. Make those nice and snug. We'll put a torque wrench on those before we actually go out and fire it. Alright. And that's all there is to it. We just took a Howa action as you would receive it if you ordered it, dropped it into a chassis, threw an optic on there, and now we're ready to hit the range. We didn't have to do any head spacing, we didn't have to mess with barrel vices, we definitely didn't have to mess with a lathe, so that made things a lot easier and a lot faster. So how about that? You see what I did there? Try to Try to control yourselves. The dad jokes. That last joke's for free. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them down below. If you're watching this on the website, or you just need to call us for whatever reason, feel free to give us a call on the tech line. We'll be happy to help you out. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.